But you don't know the truth. NYC's darkest secrets.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a serious deep dive into the dark, erased, and honestly buried histories hiding right beneath the bustling, glamorous surface of New York City. You know, we usually just see the flashy advertisements, the towering skyscrapers, those bright metropolis dreams. But today, we're looking closer. We're going to peel back the concrete and steel to see what's actually hiding in the shadows. Think about it. You might walk these exact streets every single day. You snap photos, you hop on the subway, you completely trust the infrastructure. But have you ever stopped to wonder what's literally buried beneath your feet? Because right under those neon lights and modern skyscrapers is this layered, living organism of forgotten tragedy and hidden secrets. The city we all know? It's just the surface. Together, we're going to uncover the history that New York itself has tried really hard to forget.
So, let's start our descent with Layer 1, a city built on the dead.
15,000. Just let that staggering number sink in for a second. Back in 1991, construction workers in Lower Manhattan were just trying to lay the foundation for a new federal building. Suddenly, they unearthed human bones, and then hundreds more. They'd accidentally stumbled upon the African burial ground. We're talking about an estimated 15,000 forgotten bodies of colonial-era African men, women, and children. Many of them were enslaved, and experts actually found grim evidence of brutal labor and malnutrition. For centuries, roads, modern offices, and government buildings were just built right on top of them. Thousands of people walked over these graves every single day without a clue.
Now, if we move up from Manhattan to the Bronx, this hidden history hits an even more massive scale. Over 1 million. That's how many unclaimed bodies are buried on Hart Island, this completely isolated public cemetery. Over the last 50 years, victims of epidemics, the AIDS crisis in the 80s, and unidentified bodies from various disasters were all brought here. They were buried in mass trenches, just simple coffins stacked by prison inmates, totally hidden away from normal city life. It's literally a massive, quiet cemetery existing right next to one of the loudest, busiest cities on the planet.
Okay, moving deeper. Let's look at Layer 2, the secret underground.
The contrast going on right beneath your feet is honestly wild. Every day, 3 million riders rely on this modern transit system. But just out of sight is a sprawling 600-plus-mile labyrinth of track. Just beyond the dark edges of the stations you commute through lies this whole hidden world of sealed maintenance corridors. And it gets crazier. There are actual makeshift underground societies down there. For decades, small communities, sometimes called the Mole People, have lived inside abandoned subway tunnels. They've built homes out of scrap wood, siphoned off electricity, and essentially operated a shadow city right beneath the bustling metropolis.
But hey, not all of this underground world is gritty and makeshift. Some of it is absolutely stunning. If you stay on the downtown 6 train just past the final stop, you might catch a really quick, fleeting glimpse of the abandoned City Hall subway station. It opened way back in 1904, and it's this frozen architectural marvel. Think elegant arches and gorgeous chandeliers. But as subway trains got longer, that beautifully curved platform actually became too dangerous to use, so they permanently closed it in 1945. Now it just sits there. A ghost station completely frozen in time, quietly passed by thousands of people every day. As you can imagine, a vast, dark network like this breeds an absolute ton of myths and legends. You've got rumors of hidden entrances like Track 61 under the Waldorf Astoria, which VIPs like President Franklin D. Roosevelt supposedly used to slip into the city totally unnoticed. Then there are whispers about entire stations being bricked up and sealed off after deadly accidents. And my favorite part, transit workers on the late-night shifts consistently report hearing strange echoes, weird radio signals, and footsteps in empty tunnels where literally no one else should be. That brings us to Layer 3, the Islands of Isolation. Take a look at the deeply haunting history of North Brother Island, right out in the East River. Back in the late 1800s, it housed Riverside Hospital, which was a strict quarantine facility for deadly diseases. Then in 1904, it received the victims of the horrific General Slocum steamship fire, a tragedy that killed over 1,000 people. Later, it famously became the forced quarantine home of Mary Mullen, who you probably know as Typhoid Mary. She actually died there in total isolation in 1938. It later morphed into a tuberculosis center, then a drug rehab facility, before being completely abandoned. Today, it's just a forbidden ruin, slowly being swallowed up by nature.
The source material sums up the vibe of these places perfectly with this quote. Collapsed hospitals, overgrown corridors, empty wards. That chilling atmosphere of decay is perfectly mirrored by another spot, the Renwick Smallpox Hospital on Roosevelt Island. This place was built in the 1850s, back when smallpox was one of the absolute deadliest diseases on the planet. Victims were shipped out there, completely isolated, to suffer through extreme fevers and agonizing deaths. Today, it's just this creepy, ruined stone shell. It serves as a very physical, very permanent reminder of the medical nightmares the city desperately tried to quarantine away from the public eye.
And for our final descent, let's look at Layer 4, a history of erasure. You see, New York is a city that constantly rebuilds over its own scars. It essentially overwrites its past. Urban planners, like the infamous Robert Moses, literally bulldozed through history. They displaced working-class families and erased entire neighborhoods. A perfect example? Seneca Village. This was a vibrant, predominantly black community that was completely wiped off the map just to create Central Park. Most tourists strolling those paths today have absolutely zero clue what was there before. Same goes for the brutal Five-Point slum from the 1800s. It was entirely flattened and replaced by modern government buildings. The city constantly reinvents itself, but it does so by burying the lives of the people who are already there.
And the contrast between different eras is just staggering. We all know the highly commercialized, super safe tourist hubs of today. But rewind the clock back to the 1970s, and you're looking at a reality where New York City nearly collapsed. Crime rates exploded, entire city blocks in the Bronx were literally lost to arson, and basic city services essentially went bankrupt. Add to that the mass panic of the Son of Sam serial killer, David Berkowitz, murdering 6 people, and you had a genuinely terrifying time. It's a dark chapter that the shiny, modern version of the city has worked incredibly hard to just erase.
Right in the middle of all that chaos, another layer of power was operating right under everyone's noses. The Mafia had built an invisible empire. 5 incredibly powerful families, the Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno families, deeply infiltrated the city's legitimate infrastructure. I mean, they controlled the shipping docks, the garbage collection, the labor unions, and massive construction projects. They were ordering hits from corner restaurants and running this violent empire completely in plain sight. You could walk past a normal-looking social club and be entirely unaware of the massive criminal syndicate being managed inside, at least until the city finally cracked down and scrubbed that era away.
But here's the thing. Systemic erasure isn't always about grand urban planning or massive invisible crime syndicates. Sometimes it's about highly localized, totally abrupt tragedies that shatter a community in a single afternoon. Let's look at March 25, 1911, when a massive fire broke out inside a garment factory right near Washington Square Park.
146. That was the devastating death toll from that single day. See, factory management had actually locked the exit doors to prevent workers from taking unauthorized breaks. So when the fire started, the workers, who were mostly young immigrant women, were completely trapped. Many perished in the flames or were forced to jump from the upper floor windows while crowds just watched in absolute horror from the streets below. That nightmare exposed severe corporate negligence and forever changed workplace safety laws in America. Yet today, thousands of tourists walk right past that exact spot, taking selfies, completely unaware of the horrific tragedy that happened right where they're standing.
So, after peeling back all these layers together, from the 15,000 buried bodies and the eerie ghost stations of the subway, to the isolated islands of disease, the erased communities under Central Park, and the forgotten tragedies resting quietly beneath the concrete, I gotta leave you with this final thought. Now that you know about the dark, hidden secrets holding up that spectacular skyline, will you ever look at New York City the exact same way again? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And remember, sometimes the most fascinating stories are the ones purposely hidden in the places we think we know best.